I didn't think getting pulled over would turn into the kind of night that sticks with you long after it's over. But it did. And it all started with a stupid decision to go out driving when I should have just stayed home. My name's Nathan. I'm 24, living alone, working a job that drains just enough life out of me to make every evening feel heavier than it should. That night, my apartment felt suffocating. Quiet in the worst way, like my own thoughts were echoing too loud in my head. So I grabbed my keys and left. No destination, no plan, just needed movement. The city at night has this weird calm to it, empty roads, flickering lights, that distant hum of life still happening somewhere else. I rolled the windows down, let the cool air hit my face, trying to shake off the day. For a while it worked, until I saw the lights, red and blue flashing in my rearview mirror. My stomach dropped instantly. Shit! I checked my speed. Normal. Signals? I used them. No idea what I did wrong. But that didn't stop my pulse from kicking up as I pulled over to the side of the road. The street was almost empty. Just me, my car, and whatever this was about to turn into. I watched in the mirror as the patrol car stopped behind me. Door opened. And then him. The officer. Tall. Broad shoulders. The kind of posture that didn't just say authority, it owned it. Even under the dim streetlight, I could make out the sharp lines of his face, the controlled way he moved. Like nothing about him was accidental. He walked up to my window. I rolled it down, trying to keep it together. Evening. License and registration. His voice was low, calm, no emotion. I nodded, fumbling slightly as I reached for my wallet. I don't usually get nervous around cops. But something about him, I don't know, threw me off. I handed everything over. His eyes flicked between the documents and my face. That pause felt longer than it should have been. Then, step out of the vehicle. My chest tightened. Did I? Step out of the car. Same tone. No room for discussion. So I did. The night air hit colder outside. Or maybe that was just me. I stepped out, shutting the door behind me, trying not to overthink it. Maybe it was routine. Maybe I was just overreacting. But then he stepped closer. Turn around. Hands on the car. Yeah. Definitely not feeling routine anymore. Still, I obeyed. Placed my hands flat against the metal, feeling the cool surface under my palms. My heartbeat was loud enough I was sure he could hear it. This is just a standard search, he said. But his voice was quieter now. Closer. I felt his hands on my shoulders first. Firm. Controlled. Then moving down. Slow. Too slow. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was just hyper-aware because of the situation. But every time his hands moved, my body reacted like it meant something. Down my arms. My sides. My back. Then lower. I inhaled sharply when his hand brushed my waist, lingering just a fraction too long. My brain immediately went, that's not normal. But I didn't move, didn't say anything. His hand slid down further along my thigh, and for a second, just a second, it crossed a line it absolutely shouldn't have. Not aggressively, not by accident either. Deliberate. My body tensed. Silence stretched between us. Thick, heavy. I didn't know what to do. Call him out? Pull away? Pretend it didn't happen? Instead, I just stayed there, frozen, and weirdly aware of everything. Then, just as suddenly, he stepped back. You're clear. His voice had changed. Softer. Lower. I turned around slowly. That's when I saw it. That shift in his expression. Still controlled but not entirely. Something underneath. Something restrained. And it hit me all at once. This wasn't normal. Not even close. That wasn't really a routine search, was it? I asked. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because the silence felt worse. His jaw tightened slightly. I was doing my job. Your job. I let out a quiet breath, almost laughing. Right? He didn't respond. Just looked at me. And the way he looked, it wasn't like a cop assessing a situation. It was like he was trying to decide something. Why'd you actually stop me? I asked. Another pause. Then, you shouldn't be out here alone this late. That wasn't an answer. Not really. I took a step closer without even thinking. I think you already knew I wasn't a threat. His eyes flicked to mine, sharper this time. I think, I continued, lowering my voice. You stopped me for a different reason. That did something. I saw it. A flicker. Gone almost immediately, but not fast enough. Get back in your car, Nathan. The way he said my name. Yeah. That definitely wasn't standard. I hesitated. Every logical part of me said, leave. Now. But something else. Something heavier, harder to ignore. Kept me standing there. What's your name? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, Sean. And the moment he said it, something shifted again. Like whatever line had been holding this whole thing together was starting to blur. And I had a feeling this night wasn't even close to over. I should have left. Seriously, if I had even a shred of common sense, I would have just gotten back into my car and driven away, like any normal person would. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed there, standing a few feet away from a police officer who had no business looking at me the way he was. Sean. Even just knowing his name made it feel more real, more personal than it should have been. You can go, he said again. But this time it didn't sound like an order. It sounded like a test. I exhaled slowly, glancing at my car, then back at him. Yeah, I probably should. But I didn't move. Neither did he. That silence came back thicker now, heavier. Like the air itself was waiting to see which one of us would break first. Sean shifted slightly, his hands resting on his belt, but I noticed the way his fingers flexed. Subtle, controlled, like he was holding himself back from something. From what, I wasn't sure. Do you always question officers like this? He asked. There was a hint of something in his voice now. Not quite irritation. Not quite amusement either. Do you always touch people like that during routine searches? I shot back. His eyes darkened. That definitely hit. For a second, I thought I might have pushed too far. That this was the part where things turned bad, where he snapped back into full authority and reminded me exactly how much power he had in the situation. Instead, he stepped closer. Not aggressive. Not rushed. But deliberate. You're playing a dangerous game, he said quietly. My pulse spiked, but I held my ground. Am I? Another step closer. Now he was right there. Close enough that I could see the details I missed before: the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the slight crease between his brows, the way his eyes didn't just look at me. They studied me, like he was trying to figure me out, or maybe trying to figure himself out. You don't know anything about me, he continued. His voice was lower now, rougher. Then tell me, I said. I don't know where that confidence came from. Maybe adrenaline, maybe something else. But the second the words left my mouth, I knew there was no going back to normal after this. Sean let out a slow breath, his gaze dropping for just a moment before locking back onto mine. That's not how this works. Seems like we already crossed how this works, I replied. That got a reaction. A real one this time. His jaw tightened again. But there was something else behind it: frustration, maybe. Or conflict. Get in your car, Nathan. There it was again. My name. The way he said it. Not detached. Not professional. Personal. And that did something to me I wasn't ready to unpack. I should have listened. Instead, I took another small step forward. Close enough now that if I moved just a little more, I'd be right against him. You keep saying that, I said quietly. But you're not exactly making me want to leave. That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. Sean's hand moved fast enough to catch me off guard, but instead of pushing me away, he grabbed my wrist. Firm. Not painful, but grounding. Like he needed the contact just as much as I suddenly did. You need to stop, he said, but his voice didn't match his words, because he didn't let go. I looked down at where his hand wrapped around my wrist, then back up at him. Then let go. He didn't. If anything, his grip tightened slightly, and that silence came back again. Only now it felt different, charged, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with flashing lights or badges. Sean, I said, softer this time. That did it. Something in his expression cracked, not completely, but enough. Enough for me to see it clearly now. He was struggling. With himself. With this. With me. You have no idea what you're doing, he muttered. Then explain it to me. Another beat. Then, slowly like it took more effort than it should, he let go of my wrist. The absence of his touch felt noticeable. Too noticeable. You need to leave, he said again. But now it sounded different. Not an order. A warning. I searched his face, trying to understand what exactly had just happened between us. What happens if I don't? I don't know why I asked that. Maybe I wanted to hear him say it. Maybe I wanted to push him just a little further. Sean let out a quiet, almost frustrated laugh, running a hand through his hair for the first time since this started. That's exactly the problem, he said. What is? He looked at me, really looked this time, no walls, no mask. You don't seem scared. And he was right. I wasn't. Not in the way I should have been. If I was, I said, holding his gaze, I wouldn't still be standing here. That landed. Hard. His expression shifted again, something deeper now, something less controlled. For a second, I thought he might step back. Put distance between us. Reset everything. Instead, he stepped closer. Again. Now there was barely any space left between us. You should go home, he said quietly. But his voice didn't sound like he wanted me to, and that was the moment I realized. This wasn't just a weird traffic stop anymore. This was something else entirely. And whatever it was, we were both already too far into it to pretend otherwise. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was me. Or maybe we'd both been leaning toward that moment since the second those lights flashed behind me. All I know is suddenly, the space between us was gone. Not in some dramatic, rushed way. Slow. Careful. Like we both knew this was a line we weren't supposed to cross. And crossed it anyway. Sean's hand came up again, but this time it wasn't to stop me. It hovered for a second near my arm, hesitating before finally settling against my side. Like, almost unsure. That alone told me everything. This wasn't just impulse. He was fighting himself. And losing. You need to get in your car, he said again. But his voice was barely above a whisper now. You keep saying that, I murmured. But you're still here. His jaw tightened slightly. But he didn't move away. Neither did I. The tension between us felt unreal at this point. Like the world outside of this empty road had just disappeared. No cars. No sounds. Just the two of us standing too close, breathing the same air. You don't understand what this could cost me, he said quietly. That was the first real crack. Not just in control. In honesty. I think I do, I replied. His eyes flicked up to mine. No, you don't, he said. You go home, this is just a weird story. Something you forget in a week. I shook my head slightly. That's not what this feels like. Another pause. Longer this time. More dangerous. Because now we were both aware of it. Whatever this was. Sean exhaled slowly, like he was trying to ground himself. But his hand was still on my side, and I could feel the subtle tension in his fingers. Like he was holding on without realizing it. I shouldn't have stopped you, he admitted. That caught me off guard. What? His lips pressed into a thin line. I saw you drive past earlier, he said. You weren't speeding. Didn't break any rules. I frowned slightly. Then why? I don't know. He cut in quickly. But that wasn't true. We both knew it. He just didn't want to say it out loud. You do know, I said softly. His eyes closed for a brief second, like he was debating whether to lie again or just give in. When he opened them, something had shifted. Less guarded. More real. I saw you, he said. That was it. Simple. But it hit harder than anything else he'd said so far. And I couldn't just let it go. The way he said it. Yeah. That wasn't about traffic violations. I felt something tighten in my chest. You pulled me over because you saw me? I asked. He let out a quiet, almost disbelieving breath. When you say it like that, it sounds worse than it is. I huffed a small laugh. I don't know, man. It already sounds pretty bad. That earned the faintest hint of a smile from him. Gone almost instantly. But I saw it. And somehow, that made everything feel even more intense. Because it wasn't just tension anymore. It was connection. And that made it harder to walk away. "You should hate me right now," he said. "Should I?" "Yes." I tilted my head slightly, studying him. "But I don't." That did something. Again. His expression shifted subtle. "But there. You don't even know me," he said. "Then why does it feel like I do?" I asked. That wasn't planned. Just came out. But the second I said it, I knew it was true. Sean stared at me for a long second, like he was trying to figure out if I was serious. I didn't look away, didn't back down. Eventually, his gaze dropped not in defeat, but in thought, like he was running through every possible outcome of what was happening right now. And none of them were safe. "Nathan," he started, then stopped. I waited, but he didn't finish. Instead, his hand finally slipped away from my side. That small loss of contact felt bigger than it should have. "I can't do this," he said. There it was. The line. The one he'd been trying to hold onto this entire time. I nodded slowly. "Okay." But I didn't move. And neither did he. Because even though he said he couldn't, he was still standing there. Still looking at me like leaving wasn't what he actually wanted. "You need to go," he added, quieter this time. I exhaled, glancing toward my car again, then back at him. "Yeah." A beat. "I know." But something in my chest twisted at the thought of actually getting in the car and driving away. Like this would just end. And that would be it. No explanation. No closure. Just a moment that almost turned into something. "I'll go," I said. Another pause. "But this doesn't feel finished." That landed. I could see it. Sean's eyes met mine again, something deeper there now. Less resistance. More conflict. "That's because it can't be anything," he said. "Or because you're scared of what it could be?" I countered. Silence. He didn't answer. Didn't deny it either. And that was all I needed. I reached for my car door, fingers brushing the handle. Then stopped. I looked back at him one last time. "You gonna pull me over again if I drive by?" I asked. There was the smallest shift in his expression. Something almost amused. Almost. "Don't give me a reason to," he said. That wasn't a no. Not even close. I opened the door, sliding into the driver's seat. My heart still racing like I just stepped out of something way bigger than it should have been. Before closing the door, I glanced at him again. He was still standing there, watching me, not like an officer, like a man who just let something happen and didn't know how to undo it. I shut the door, started the engine, but as I pulled away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, not even close. And somehow, I had a feeling I'd see Sean again, sooner than I should. I didn't plan to see him again. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head. Because if I'm being honest, I should have avoided that road completely after what happened. Taken a different route. Pretended it was just some weird, one-time thing. But 2 nights later, I was back. Same road. Same time. Like an idiot. Or maybe not an idiot. Maybe I just wanted to know if it was real. The city felt the same, quiet, distant, almost unreal, but I wasn't driving to clear my head this time. I was looking for him. And that alone should have told me I was already too deep in this. I slowed down as I approached the stretch where it happened. My eyes flicked to the side streets, the shadows, every parked car. Nothing. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Yeah, figures. Of course he wouldn't be there. Why would he be? He had a job, a life, rules. Unlike me, apparently. I almost laughed at myself and was about to keep driving when I saw it, parked just ahead, partially hidden under a streetlight. The patrol car. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. No way. For a second, I considered just driving past, acting like I didn't see it, like I didn't feel that immediate rush in my chest. But then, the headlights flicked on behind me. Red and blue followed. My heart jumped straight into my throat. "You've got to be kidding me." I pulled over again. Same as before. Same empty road. Same exact feeling, but stronger this time. Because now, this wasn't random. Not even close. I watched him step out of the car again. Sean. Same controlled walk. Same presence. But this time, I noticed something different. He didn't hesitate. Not even for a second. Like he already knew it was me. I rolled down the window before he even reached the car. Do you always patrol this road? I asked, trying to sound casual. He stopped just short of the door. Looked at me. Really looked. Do you always come back to places you shouldn't be? He replied. Okay. So we were skipping the formalities this time. Guess that depends. I said. Sometimes it's worth it. His jaw shifted slightly, but there was no real bite in his expression. Just awareness. Step out of the vehicle. Same words. Different tone. I smirked a little despite myself. Deja vu. Nathan. Yeah. That did it again. I pushed the door open and stepped out, closing it behind me. But this time, I didn't wait for instructions. Didn't turn around. Didn't put my hands on the car. I just stood there, facing him. You gonna search me again? I asked. His eyes darkened instantly. Don't start. Then don't pretend this is routine. That hit. I saw it. But he held it together better this time. Barely. You were driving slow, he said. I raised an eyebrow. That's illegal now? No, he replied. But circling the same block twice at this hour is suspicious. Couldn't help it, I laughed. Suspicious? Yeah. You want to know why I was circling? A pause. He didn't answer. But he didn't stop me either. I was looking for you. There. Said it. No taking it back now. Silence dropped between us instantly. Heavy. Charged. Sean stared at me like I just made things 10 times more complicated than they already were. Which, yeah, I probably did. You shouldn't have said that, he muttered. Why? Because it's true. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair again. That same gesture from before. Frustration. Conflict. You don't make this easy, he said. I'm not trying to. That earned me a look. One that lingered just a second too long. You think this is a game? He asked. No, I said quietly. I think if it was, you wouldn't have pulled me over again. That landed. Hard. Because we both knew it. This wasn't about traffic. Not anymore. Sean, I added softer this time. He stilled slightly, like hearing his name from me did something he didn't expect. You didn't have to stop me. I know. Then why did you? A long pause. Longer than any before. Then finally. Because I wanted to see if you'd come back. That hit me right in the chest. Way harder than it should have. And? I asked. His eyes locked onto mine. You did. Something about the way he said that. Certain. Like he'd been thinking about it since that first night. Yeah. That changed things. You were waiting, I said. It wasn't a question. He didn't answer. Didn't deny it either. Which told me everything. I took a step closer. Not rushed. Not forced. Just natural. Like we were picking up exactly where we left off. You gonna tell me to leave again? I asked. His gaze dropped briefly to the space between us. Then back up. I should. But you won't. Another pause. Then, no. And just like that, whatever thin line we'd been pretending still existed. Gone. Completely. We stood there again, too close, too aware, too far into something neither of us had planned. You realize this is a really bad idea, he said quietly. Yeah, I replied. Neither of us moved away. Not even a little. And you still came back. I held his gaze. So did you. That did it. Again. That shift in his expression. That crack in control. And this time, it didn't close. Not completely. Because now, neither of us was pretending this was anything other than exactly what it was. And the worst part? I didn't want it to stop. Not anymore. At this point, it didn't even feel like a question of whether we'd crossed the line. Felt like we already had. We were just standing in the middle of it, pretending we still had a choice. You should get back in your car, Sean said again. But there was no weight behind it anymore. No authority. Just hesitation. You should stop saying that, I replied. A quiet beat passed between us. Then, you came back for me, he said. Not accusing. Not surprised. Just stating it. Yeah, I admitted. No point pretending otherwise now. His eyes searched my face like he was trying to understand why, like it didn't make sense to him that someone would come back into something this complicated on purpose. I shouldn't want that, he muttered. But you do. That one hit deeper than anything else. Because this time, he didn't argue, didn't deflect, didn't hide behind the badge, the rules, or whatever line he kept trying to hold on to. He just looked at me, and I saw it clearly. He wanted this, as much as I did. That night, he started, his voice lower now. After you left, he stopped. Like finishing that sentence would make everything too real. I didn't push, just waited. I couldn't stop thinking about it, he finally said. Something in my chest tightened. Yeah, I said quietly. Same. That seemed to catch him off guard. You should have forgotten it, he said. Why? Because it's easier. I let out a small breath. Doesn't feel like it. His lips pressed together, like he knew I was right but didn't want to admit it. Silence settled again. But this time it wasn't tense in the same way. It was heavy, honest. You ever do something you know is a bad idea? I said. But it feels right anyway? He gave a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, pretty sure I'm doing it right now. That almost made me smile. Almost. Because there was something about seeing him like this, less controlled, less guarded, that made everything feel more real than it probably should have. You gonna arrest me? I asked lightly. His eyes snapped back to mine. Don't joke about that. I'm serious. You shouldn't be. Why not? Because this, he gestured slightly between us. This isn't something I can afford to mess up. There it was again. The reality of it. The risk. The consequences. I'm not asking you to, I said. He frowned slightly. Then what are you doing? I stepped closer. Not dramatically. Just enough to close that last bit of space again. I don't know, I admitted. And that was the truth. I didn't have a plan. Didn't have an end goal. All I knew was that walking away didn't feel like an option anymore. Sean watched me carefully, like every small movement mattered. Like one wrong step would snap whatever this was. You're making this really hard, he said. Good. That slipped out before I could stop it. But instead of getting annoyed, he huffed a quiet laugh. Actually laughed. And that was new. You're unbelievable, he muttered. And yet, I said, holding his gaze, you're still here. That shut him up again. Because yeah, he was, and we both knew why. A few seconds passed. Then his hand moved. Slow. Deliberate. This time, when it touched me, it wasn't hesitant. It settled against my arm, fingers pressing lightly like he was grounding himself, testing the reality of it. You don't back off, do you? He said quietly. I shook my head. No. Another pause. Then, neither do you. That did it. That was the moment something shifted again. Because instead of pulling away, he stepped closer, until there was no space left at all. My breath caught slightly, but I didn't move. Didn't break eye contact. His hand slid just a little from my arm to my side, firmer now, more certain than before. You keep pushing, he said. And you keep letting me. His grip tightened slightly at that. Not aggressive. Just real. Like he was done pretending this wasn't happening. You don't know what you're getting into, he murmured. Then show me. That was it. That was the point of no return. I saw it in his face. The hesitation gone. The conflict still there, but quieter now. Buried under something stronger. Something neither of us was trying to ignore anymore. Sean exhaled slowly, his forehead almost touching mine now. For a second, just a second, felt like time stopped. No cars, no city, no consequences. Just this. You're a problem, he said under his breath. I almost smiled. Yeah, I whispered. But you pulled me over. And that broke the last piece of restraint he had left. Because the next thing I felt was him pulling me closer. Not enough to lose control, but enough that there was no space left to pretend. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just a mistake anymore. This was something we were both choosing, even if we knew exactly how complicated it was about to get. I don't know how long we stood like that. Seconds. Maybe longer. Time felt off, like everything outside of that moment had just faded out completely. Sean's hand was still on my side. Firm now, steady. Not testing anymore. Not hesitant. Certain. And that alone said more than anything he'd tried to deny before. "You need to stop," he said again. But this time, it didn't sound like a command. It sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "Then make me," I replied quietly. The words hung there between us. Heavy. Dangerous. And the second they settled, I saw it. That shift in his expression. The last bit of control slipping. "You don't get it," he said, voice low. "Then explain it." His grip tightened slightly, like he was grounding himself again. "This doesn't end well," he added. "Maybe not." I didn't look away. "But that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen." That hit something deeper. I saw it in his eyes, clear as anything now. Not just attraction. Not just tension. Conflict. Real conflict. Because this wasn't just about two guys on an empty road anymore. This was his job. His reputation. Everything he'd built. And I was standing right in the middle of it, acting like none of that mattered. "You're asking me to risk everything," he said. "I'm not asking you to do anything," I replied. A pause. "You're choosing this." That landed harder than anything else I'd said. Because it was true. And we both knew it. Sean looked away for the first time in a while, jaw tight like he hated how right that sounded. But he didn't step back. Didn't let go. And that told me everything. "Say I walk away right now," I said. "You gonna forget this?" Silence. He didn't answer. "Yeah." I nodded slightly. "Didn't think so." His eyes snapped back to mine. "You don't make this easy. You keep saying that. Because it's true. And you still haven't walked away." That shut him up again. The tension between us shifted less about if this was happening, more about how far it would go. And that was somehow worse. Or better. Depending on how you looked at it. "You came back knowing exactly what this was," he said. "Did you?" Another pause. Then, "Yeah." That was the first fully honest answer he'd given without fighting it. And it changed everything. Because now, we weren't pretending anymore. We both knew. We both chose it. Sean's hand moved again, sliding slightly along my side, slower this time, more aware, like he was memorizing the moment instead of resisting it. "You're gonna be a problem," he muttered. "I think I already am." That earned a quiet breath from him, almost a laugh. But not quite. "Yeah," he said under his breath. "You are." For a second, neither of us moved. We just stood there, close enough to feel each other's breathing. The air between us thick with everything we weren't saying out loud. Then, headlights in the distance. Faint, but enough. Sean noticed it instantly. His entire posture shifted. Not completely, but enough to remind me. He wasn't just Sean. He was an officer. And we weren't invisible. "Shit," he muttered, stepping back slightly. Not far, but enough to break the moment. Reality rushed back in all at once. The road, the world, consequences. I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. Yeah. That was going to happen eventually. Another car passed in the distance, not slowing, but close enough to remind us how exposed this actually was. Sean glanced toward his patrol car, then back at me. And for the first time since this started, he looked conflicted in a different way. Not just internal, practical. "We can't do this here," he said. There it was. Not "we shouldn't." "We can't here." That difference? Yeah. Caught it. "So don't," I replied. He frowned slightly. "Don't what?" "Don't do it here." A beat. Then it clicked. And I saw it happen in real time, the realization, the hesitation, the immediate understanding of what I was implying. "That's a bad idea," he said quickly. "Probably. You're not helping." "I'm not trying to." Another car passed farther away this time. Less noticeable, but still enough to keep that tension in place. Sean looked at me like he was trying to calculate every possible outcome again. like he had the first night. Only this time, he already knew how this felt, and that made it harder to say no. You really don't back off, he said. No. A pause. Then quieter. Neither do you. That did it. Again. His jaw tightened, but not in resistance. In decision. Get in your car, he said. That could have meant anything. Could have been the same thing he'd been saying all night. But his tone? Different. Clearer. More intentional. Why? I asked. His eyes held mine. For once, he said, just listen. And something about the way he said it, not like an order, like a choice, made me pause. Then slowly, I nodded, turned, and reached for the door. But as I opened it, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened next was going to change everything. The drive felt different this time. Not quiet, not calming. Every second stretched, thick with anticipation, my mind replaying everything that had just happened over and over again. Sean followed behind me. No lights, no siren, just there. That alone made my chest tighten. Because now, this wasn't a stop. This wasn't random. This was a choice. I glanced in the rearview mirror more times than I should have, catching glimpses of his car keeping a steady distance behind mine. Not too close, not too far. Controlled. Like him. I didn't even think about where I was going until I was already turning into my street. My place. Yeah, that was happening. I pulled into my parking spot, engine still running for a second longer than necessary. My hands rested on the wheel, tight. Then I exhaled. Cut the engine. Silence. For a moment I just sat there, listening to my own heartbeat, trying to process how the hell I went from a random late-night drive to this. Headlights washed over the back of my car as Sean pulled in behind me. Engine off. Dark again. I stepped out first. Didn't wait. Didn't give myself time to overthink it. Because if I did, I might have stopped. And I already knew I wasn't going to. The night air felt cooler here. Quieter. More real. Footsteps behind me. Measured. Familiar now. I turned before he even reached me. Sean stopped a few feet away. Not as close as before. Not immediately. And for the first time since this started, there was distance again. Not physical. Something else. Reality. This is a bad idea, he said. Again. But it didn't sound like a warning anymore. It sounded like acceptance. Yeah, I replied. Neither of us moved for a second. Just stood there in the dim light of the parking lot. The tension settling into something heavier than before. More serious. Because now, there were no excuses. No uniforms to hide behind. No empty road to pretend this was just something fleeting. This was deliberate. You live alone? He asked. Yeah. A small nod from him. Like he expected that. Or maybe hoped for it. You do this often? He added. I raised an eyebrow. Get pulled over by cops who don't follow the rules? That earned the slightest shift in his expression. Almost a smirk. Don't twist it. I'm not. A beat. Then quieter. This is new for me too. That one surprised him. I could see it. Doesn't seem like it, he said. Yeah. I shrugged slightly. You seem pretty practiced yourself. That hit. Because for the first time, he hesitated. Not with me. With himself. I'm not, he said after a moment. And I believed him. That was the thing. As controlled as he seemed, as confident as he carried himself. This wasn't something he had done before. And somehow, that made everything feel even more intense. Then why me? I asked. The question slipped out before I could stop it. But now that it was there, I needed the answer. Sean looked at me for a long second, like he was deciding how honest to be, or if he should answer at all. Then, I don't know, he admitted. I frowned slightly. That's not an answer. I know. Try again. A quiet breath left him, like he was giving up on holding anything back. I saw you, he said again, slower this time, and something about it just stuck. I didn't interrupt, didn't joke, because I knew that wasn't easy for him to say. I tried to ignore it, he continued, But then you kept driving back through that area, and I realized you weren't just passing through. I huffed a small breath. Yeah, guess I wasn't subtle. No, he said. You weren't. But there was no judgment in it. Just something else. Something quieter. You could have ignored it, I said. I could have. But you didn't. A pause. Then, no. That word sat between us. Heavy. Final. I took a step closer. Slow. Giving him time to step back if he wanted to. He didn't. You still can, I said. Another chance. Another out. His eyes searched mine, like he was looking for something that would make this easier. Safer. He didn't find it, because it wasn't there. I know, he said quietly. But he didn't move, didn't leave, didn't walk away. And that told me everything. The space between us closed again. Naturally. Like it was always meant to. No badge, I said softly. No road. No excuses. His jaw tightened slightly. Yeah. So what now? That was the real question. Not about rules. Not about consequences. Just. Sean exhaled slowly, his hand lifting again, this time without hesitation, without doubt, as it settled against my side. Familiar now. Certain. You really don't make this easy, he murmured. I met his gaze. Good. A second passed. Then another. And then, he stepped closer. No stopping this time. No holding back. And just like that, there was nothing left between us anymore. Not distance. Not hesitation. Not even the illusion of control. Just two choices that had already been made. And whatever came next, we were both fully in it now. For a second, neither of us moved. Not because we didn't want to, but because we both knew whatever happened next wasn't something we could take back. Sean's hand was still on my side. Steady. Grounding. I could feel the tension in him, but it wasn't the same kind as before. Not hesitation. Restraint. Like he was trying to slow this down, even though he'd already decided not to stop it. You sure about this? He asked quietly. That caught me off guard. Not because of the question, but because of the way he asked it. Careful. Real. I held his gaze. Yeah, I said. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't pushing. I wasn't challenging him. I was just answering. Something shifted in his expression. Not the conflict. That was still there. But something softer underneath it. Say it again, he said. I frowned slightly. What? That you're sure? A small pause. Then, I'm sure. He studied my face for a second longer, like he was making sure I meant it. Then he nodded once, like that was all he needed. Okay. That word felt heavier than anything else, because it wasn't hesitation. It was a decision. His hand moved slightly, sliding from my side to my arm, slow, deliberate, not rushed, not careless, careful. That was the difference now. Everything about this moment was careful. You're not what I expected, he said quietly. I let out a small breath. Yeah? What did you expect? He almost smiled. Someone who would have left. I shook my head slightly. Not this time. That earned a quiet exhale from him. And then, silence again. But this time it wasn't heavy or tense. It was calm, like we'd already crossed the hardest part. Now we just had to figure out what came after. Sean stepped back slightly. Not far. Just enough to put a little space between us. And for a split second I thought, that's it. He's stopping. But then he looked around the parking lot. Checking. Thinking. Still an officer even now. Let's go inside, he said. Simple. But it carried weight. Not rushed. Not reckless. Intentional. I nodded. Didn't make a joke this time. Didn't push. Because something about the way he said it. Yeah. This wasn't just impulse anymore. We walked toward my building side by side. Not touching but close enough that I could feel the awareness between us with every step. Neither of us spoke. Didn't need to. The silence said enough. Inside, the hallway lights flickered slightly as we stepped in. Too bright after the dark outside. Too real. For a second, I wondered if this was the moment it would all snap back into reality, where he'd step away, say this was a mistake. Leave. But he didn't. He stayed right there next to me as we reached my door. I unlocked it, pushing it open, then paused just inside, turning back to him. And for the first time since we got here, there it was again. That hesitation. Not the same as before. Not fear. Just awareness. This is your last chance to walk away, I said quietly. I meant it. Not as a challenge. Not as pressure. Just truth. Sean looked at me. Really looked. Then shook his head once. I would have already, he said. That was enough. I stepped back, letting him in. The door closed behind us with a soft click. And suddenly, everything felt smaller, quieter, more intense. No open road, no distance. Just the two of us in a space where there were no more interruptions, no more excuses. Sean stood there for a second, taking it in not the apartment but the moment. Then his eyes found mine again. You always get yourself into situations like this? He asked. I leaned back slightly against the door. Only when someone pulls me over for no reason. That got the smallest hint of a smile. There it was again. Gone quickly, but real. You're still not letting that go, he said. Probably never will. Another quiet moment passed. Then, he stepped closer. No hesitation this time. No stopping halfway. Just closing the distance. And when his hand found mine, it wasn't uncertain. It wasn't testing. It was steady, grounded, real. And somehow, that felt bigger than everything that came before. Because this wasn't about tension anymore. It wasn't about the chase. It was about what came after. And neither of us knew exactly what that was yet. But for the first time, it didn't feel like something we needed to run from, just something we had to face, together.